due to its age, I do not think that this film needs a spoiler warning. But if you want to watch this movie spoiler-free, then you should go watch it before watching this video. Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Ronin Time HD, and this week, what we found off the shelf was... Ringu, the original 1998 Ringu. It is an adaptation of the novel of the same name, released in 1991 by Koji Suzuki. This film is a Japanese psychological horror curse film. Gotta love a curse film. And bear with me here. This film was directed by Hideo Nakata, written by Hiroshi Takahashi. This film is starring Nanako Matsushima and Hiroyuki Sanada. I'm very sorry, I likely butchered all of those names. Either way, this film is one of many Ringu adaptations. However, from what I can tell, it was the first theatrical adaptation of the original novel, which was released in 91. And I will say, if you guys know me, if you know my channel, I am a big J-horror guy. I love J-horror. I think it's some of the most, interesting horror. It's so weird and, I don't know. There's just something about J-horror that's, different than other horror movies. They just do it different over there, especially curse films. Dude, curse films, I'm just telling you, I have a big soft spot for curse films. It doesn't even really matter where it is. Obviously, Japanese curse films are some of my favorites. But even, American curse films, I don't know, I just love the idea of, oh, you have 7 days to live, right? You have to carry the curse over to somebody else, or I don't know, I love the idea. Whoever came up with it, I like your style. Either way, I'm going off topic there. This film, which we're just going to talk about this movie, I really enjoyed. I thought this film was thoroughly enjoyable, and I think it's exactly what I look for when I think about curse films. Now, is it my favorite curse film? No, that's still Noroi. No film will ever beat Noroi in that. I think Noroi will always be my favorite curse film. But that's the gold standard. That it's an amazing movie. You can't expect every movie to live up to that. But that does not... This movie, stands on its own merits, and it stands up really well. It has good posture, I guess is a good way to describe it. And I think mainly my reason, I always... Whenever I talk about horror movies, I rattle on and on and on. Atmosphere. And this film has that in droves. There is so much atmosphere in this movie. And one thing that I really like about the scares in this movie is that they're subtle. Right? Even... I don't know, there's just something about, they're quiet, right? And they let the tension build a little bit. There's not, overbearing music or weird cuts or, I guess, kind of, attention deficit stuff that, tries to keep the attention of the audience, by, doing fast shit. It keeps it, because I'm always a guy that likes slower pace scares. Because I think the slower the pace, I guess it shouldn't be as slow as a slug, but I think, if you let it, simmer, if you let it sit, then it'll stick with the audience more. It'll make them kind of, sink in their seat a little bit more. I think that is more effective than, say, a jump scare, or way more effective than a jump scare. I think... I just really loved the eerie vibe, the, bleak vibe of this film. Of course, I liked the mystery that there was. Now, I've seen the American remake, the Western adaptation of this, and it is actually, although there are a lot of story beats that carry over, it is also a very different film. I'm not going to be comparing the films the whole time. One thing I will say is that the mystery is much more fleshed out in the Western version. Now, do I see that as a negative for the Japanese version? Not exactly. I think it really depends on what you're looking for. I think, personally, that the Japanese version is a lot better as a horror movie, but I think as a mystery, the Western version is better in that regard. Building up the mystery of who Sadako, I'm not, Samara, I guess, in the original, in the, not the original, in the American version, it's different, but they're both good in their own way. Either way, I don't know. There's just, like, also, I like how dark the film is. Like, whenever there's, like, scares, but it's not like Alien versus Predator dark where you can't see anything. It's like a good dark where it's like, as I said, it wraps back around the atmosphere. It's kind of, as I said, dreary. It's very hopeless, I guess, because the film is kind of hopeless. I mean, you're gonna die in 7 days, right? It's pretty bleak. How are you gonna figure that out without any hints? I actually, I did also, I know I'm just kind of comparing other stuff, but one other thing that I wanted to mention, which was about the original book, is that the video, obviously the iconic, like, tape in Ringu, like, that's the main thing that everybody knows about, is the video that plays, and when you watch the video, you die, right? Like, that's a trope now, but back then it was, like, really new. Like, I guess that wasn't a thing. But in the movie, in, like, all the movie adaptations, it's like a short, maybe 1 or 2 minute video. In the book, it's like it's a 20-minute video, right? And it's like, obviously for a movie, you kind of have to cut that down. What, are you just gonna have 20 minutes of the movie dedicated to this fucking log-ass videotape? Probably not, right? But it just kind of makes me wonder, if somebody, like, maybe like a fan or something could make a short film that's just the video from the book. Maybe that could be an interesting idea. Hey, maybe leave it in the comments. Maybe there is something like that that exists. I'd be down to check that out. I hope it is, but it probably isn't. Either way, I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. It would be funny if one of the movies just had, like, added an extra 20 minutes that was just the video. I think that would be a funny little gotcha. That would be a funny gotcha. Just people... just people, like, sitting in a theater watching this long-ass videotape with the characters. That'd just be funny. I'm rambling here, however. Well, talking about the tape and the tape in the book, how about we talk about the tape in the American and Japanese version? Now, the tape in the Japanese version, I think, is a lot more subtle than the American version, but again, that is not a negative on the American version. The American version is a little more in your face, but that's not a problem. It's style, right? The Western version is a generally more in-your-face movie, right? Like, I think Ringu is a lot more subtle with its scares. It's a lot more subtle with its theming. And the American version is very, like, I don't want to say linear. It's very blanket on, like, what it's doing and what it's trying to say. Which, again, not a problem. Not a criticism. They're just their own style. And the videos, I think, are a good way to look at that. So in the Japanese version, it's all like, there's some color there. There is some black and white footage there as well. Most of it is pretty desaturated, but for most of it, it's usually black and white. It's a mixture. But in the American version, it's all black and white. And in the American version, there's a lot more, I guess, more abstract stuff than in the Japanese version. I feel like, maybe not, but I feel like the American version felt a little longer than the Japanese version. Maybe at least, like, a minute longer. Because in the American version, there's a lot more to Sadako's backstory than is given in the Japanese version. So obviously they wanted to add more details about her backstory into the video. But in the Japanese video, so basically everything that's in the Japanese video, aside from one thing, from what I can remember, everything is there except for 1 or 2 things, or maybe 3 things. So I could name those. So the first thing that's not in there is a guy with like a towel or like something over his face, right? And he's pointing. That is not anywhere in the American version. Not even like a reference or nothing. That is nowhere in the American version. There's also an eye. Now, there is a shot of an eye. I believe there was a shot of an eye in the American version, but it doesn't serve the same purpose. It's just like an artsy-fartsy thing. In the Japanese version, it says, like on the eye, there's a character in the eye that says Sada, which is obviously the cut-off version of Sadako, which is her name. But they don't do that. I kind of wish they had done something like that, but I think the problem is, like, there was a character for her name, and obviously the English language doesn't work like that, right? Japanese language and the American language. The English language are two different things, and they operate differently. So I just kind of wish there was a way, because I really liked, that was one of my favorite shots from the Japanese tape, and I kind of wish they could have found some way to make it work. Like, they could have, like, maybe tweaked it a bit to make it work in the American video, because I really liked that shot, and I thought it was a nice bit of mystery. If I didn't already know her name, it probably would have been more mysterious, but either way. Then I think another big difference, what was it? Oh yeah, Eruption. The Eruption screen, which again was nowhere even in the American version, because they really changed up Sadako's backstory in the American version. She's basically a different character. Is she a vengeful spirit? Yeah, but she's a vengeful spirit for similar reasons, but not the same reasons, right? I think, like, they kind of make her sympathetic in both versions, but I feel like in the Japanese version, she's a bit more evil, right? Like, obviously she's evil in the American version, because she's killing people. She's vengeful, so she's killing people that didn't do anything to her. So she's taking her rage out on other people, but she's, like, misunderstood. Yeah, she's misunderstood in the Japanese version as well, but they kind of say, like, I mean, I guess they do mention in the American version as well, that the town was better when she died, right, is what they said, because she was kind of, like, she had, like, powers and abilities. But in the Japanese version, they called her a monster, right, and it kind of says that she's kind of like an embodiment of evil, somewhat, right? And, like, they kind of said, like, she had to go, kind of, in that sense. Again, she's a child, so I don't know if whacking her in the back of her head, in the back of the head, and then throwing her into a well was really necessary. She is a child, after all, but I guess if they hated her that much, either way, I don't know. I just think both tapes were good. I don't really think there's one I think is better than the other. As I said, it's all a preference thing. Like, do you prefer more in your face, kind of like super duper obvious spooky horror, or do you prefer more like subtle, like less in your face horror with the Japanese version? And I like both, is essentially what I'm saying. I like both. They're both very enjoyable. And I guess one other thing I want to mention is, I don't know, I think there's just something about the Japanese version where I think the film looks better than the American version, mainly because in the American version there is this ugly ass, like, green filter that, since it was the early 2000s, they were, like, the 2000s was just obsessed with ugly ass movie filters. I guess they were trying to, like, make it look more, like, spooky, I guess. I don't know. Everything just looked like they were in, like, the YMCA or something in the pool room. Like, it just, like, looked really weird. Like, I did not like that filter at all. It was kind of, like, at the beginning, I got used to it, but at the beginning of the movie, it was really distracting. I'm like, why does everybody look like they're, like, blue? Like, it just looked really fucking weird. And obviously the Japanese one does not have that. It just looks normal, right, for the most part. I mean, it doesn't have a weird-ass ugly filter over it. Which is probably my biggest criticism of the American version, was that ugly-ass filter that they put on for no reason. But yeah, I would say that I prefer the aesthetics of the original, mainly just because, I don't know, as I said, I'm kind of biased because I love J-horror, and it's probably one of my favorite subgenres of horror, just because it's just, I don't know, the vibes. I just like the vibes, okay? Foreign horror is always usually usually more my cup of tea. Not to say I don't like American horror, because I'm from here. There's good American horror. Either way, I'm rambling. I'm probably I could talk about this movie all day, but I think, I mean, obviously I just spoiled a lot of the movie for you, but if I spoiled so much and you still feel like watching the movie, then I think you totally should. I think this film is a classic, and the American version's a classic too. You could watch both of them. You could do like a marathon. You could watch both Ringu and The Ring. I think they're both classics, and I think they're both classics for a good reason. And this was kind of turned into like a dual review, I guess. But either way, I will recommend Ringu. I think it is a very, very enjoyable horror film. And I think horror fans alike, I guess if you're a fan of curse films like me, if you're a fan of J-horror, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had. I mean, if you haven't already seen it, if you're a fan of J-horror, this is like J-horror 101, right? Like so many, there's a lot of people who know about Ringu, so you probably have already seen it. But if you haven't, go and watch it. Either way, that being said, I think I would rate this film a 7.5 out of 10. And, yeah, I think that's all I need to say. I think I've said my piece. So, guys, I hope you like this video. Share it with your friends. Subscribe. Turn those notifications on. Comment down below on how much you liked it. And I've been Rich HD. Off to break the curse. So, I was watching this movie, right? And there's, like, this, like, little kid, right? Who's the son of the mom, right? And he's kind of, like, a little off, right? He's a little like devoid of emotion, right? Which I think obviously was an intentional choice. But he seems like fairly normal for the most part. I mean, he just seems like a silent kid. Like, that's normal, right? Some kids just aren't as talkative as other ones. But in the American version, he's just like straight up like a creepy, like a real creepy kid. Like, he's the kid at the back of the class, like, drawing all the ways he would kill the rest of the kids in the class. Like, he's, like, that kind of kid, you know? He's, like, he's got some shit going on, okay? And he's got, like, a weird connection to Sadako in the movie, and it's just, you know, he's a scary boy, and I don't want to be near him because I think he would scare me.